Most arm wrestlers do the same exercises over and over again, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it can make your workouts feel stale and the progress will eventually slow down. In today's video, I will share 8 exercises that you have probably never heard of. These are all exercises that I gathered over time from very successful arm wrestlers. I will start with a few that are a little bit more common, and then as we go, they will get more obscure. I would say most of you have done exercise 1 at some point, but I bet less than 1% have ever even seen exercise 8. Let's get straight into it, and the first exercise is pronation over your forearm. When training pronation, most of you grab the belt either very high or over the thumb. Both variations work extremely well, but there is a third one that many of you have never tried. Make the belt go over your forearm first and then directly into your hand. You can make the weight come from the front or from the side. For the first variation, where the weight comes from the front, you will train your pronation together with your back pressure. For the second variation, you will mainly train your pronation, but you will also target some elements of your side pressure. Now, you may ask yourself, how does this variation differ from the other two? Training your pronation this way prepares you to counter strong hookers. Most of the hookers will either grab you low or they will attack your pronator relatively low. That means you will not be able to counter them by pronating high, because you will not have access to that. And that's exactly what this exercise teaches you, to apply your pronation from the lowest point possible. The only small downside is that the pressure on your forearm bone can be quite high, so it may feel uncomfortable when you first start training this exercise. Next exercise takes the normal dumbbell bicep curls and make it more effective for arm wrestling, and that is bicep curls on the table. The biggest challenge when it comes to bicep exercises is finding one that simulates what you do on the table as accurately as possible. And that's exactly what this exercise provides. You could train this lift with many different handles. One of my favorite variations is to do it with a wrist wrench. Make sure your wrist is cupped in for every single repetition. You could either train it dynamically, where you let the weight rest after every single repetition, or you could do it statically, where you pull the weight and hold it for a certain amount of time. This is the only exercise that effectively targets your wrist and bicep at the same time, which is exactly what you need in arm wrestling, because the bicep will never work on its own. On top of that, if you're a hooker, this should be one of your main lifts, because it simulates a deep hook, and that's exactly where you'll often end up when you pull against another hookers. The exercise will feel unnatural when you first start doing it, but with time, the body will adapt. The next exercise I've been doing every week for the past few months, and it became one of my favorite pronation exercises, and that is pronation with your forearm fixed. The truth is, when you train your pronation in the traditional way, you will never fully isolate the pronator. You will either train it together with your back pressure or with your side pressure. This is the only effective pronation exercise I found that truly isolates the pronation from every other muscle group. Fix your arm on the table, open your pronation up completely, and pronate your hand through. At the top, hold the position for 1 second and repeat. If you struggle to keep your arm on the table, use your other hand to help stabilize it. You can use 3 different methods to grab the belt for this exercise: very high, over the thumb, and over your forearm. For me personally, grabbing the belt over my thumb lets me target my pronation most effectively. I wouldn't recommend this as a main exercise, but as an accessory, it is one of the best exercises you can choose from. Make sure you have full control over the weight throughout the entire movement to avoid any unnecessary injuries. By the way, all the equipment you see in this video is from Golden Grip, and with my code ALEX, you'll get 10% off on any purchase you make at goldengrip.com. The link is down below. Very soon, 5 of you will get the chance to be coached directly by me completely for free. So if you are interested, stick around until the end of the video to find out more. Now we are getting a little bit more obscure. I don't think I've seen many arm wrestlers do this exercise, and that is back rows at the machine with a wrist wrench. Back rows at the machine is one of the most popular exercises in the fitness world in general. In arm wrestling, however, your back is only as strong as your wrist and fingers. You can have the strongest back in your weight class, but if your hand is not strong enough to back it up, you will drag your arm backwards and you lose the wrist. And for most arm wrestlers, when they lose the wrist, they also lose the match. That means for every back exercise you do, your wrist has to control the weight first. Start with a straight wrist, pull the weight backwards and cup your wrist in at the same time. I wouldn't recommend this as a back exercise because your wrist and fingers will fail long before the back gets any amount of serious stress. As an alternative, if you want to train with heavier weights, you could perform this exercise with the OptiWrench. The strap of the OptiWrench connects you directly to the weight, so you won't have to contain it like you do with the wrist wrench. This is a great exercise to build strength and coordination between your hand and the back, and you can train this exercise regardless of your style. Let's continue with a pretty uncommon side pressure exercise, and that is center side pressure with your elbow fixed. There are 3 elements you have to include in your training to have a fully developed side pressure. First is side pressure pec to pec, which trains your ability to drag the elbow across the pad and win the center of the table. The second one is internal rotation, which again helps you to win the center of the table. On top of that, if you are a hooker, it will also improve your ability to get into the hook. And the third side pressure element is down pressure, which is the ability to finish the matches. Center side pressure with your elbow fixed combines some of these elements in one exercise. Set yourself up perpendicular to the table and adjust the pulley slightly above hand level. Keep your elbow fixed throughout the entire movement and push the weight sideways. You don't have to pin the weight down. If you successfully move it from the center, the lift is valid. I like to do this exercise with a wrist wrench to target the wrist and fingers in the most effective way. This exercise transfers incredibly well to the table, and you will notice great results once you start training it regularly. Next is one of the most underrated pronation exercises, and most arm wrestlers have probably never heard of it, and that is pronation static holds. Every one of you knows the famous Dev-Ollarat pronation lift. But the big problem with that exercise is that you won't have maximum pressure on your pronator when you do it that way. The pressure will be divided between the brachyradialis and the pronator. And that's exactly the reason why for some of you, the arm opens up before the pronation. To fix it, all you have to do is to add some sort of material between your hand and the rope. By doing that, you maximize the pressure on your pronator. You could either train it dynamically, where you let the weight rest after every single repetition, or you could train it statically, where you pick the weight up and hold it for a certain amount of time. I prefer the static variation more because it targets the pronation more efficiently. This exercise builds the habit of having your pronation fully engaged even before the match starts. It is an amazing lift, and if you have never done it before, I highly recommend including it to your training program. Now we are going deeper down the iceberg and we take a look at wrist wrench work with one side of the handle. Everyone knows the classic wrist curls with a wrist wrench, which is overall a great exercise to build cupping strength. But the truth is, in a real match, the pressure is rarely divided along your hand so perfectly. Most of the time, you will have to cup your wrist by generating pressure from only one side of your hand, and that is exactly what this exercise teaches you. You can attach the wrist wrench from the top or from the bottom. The top position forces you to cup with your index and middle finger, which is exactly what you need as a top roller. The bottom position, on the other hand, makes you cup with your pinky and ring finger, which is better suited for hookers. On top of that, training it one-sided also forces you to use more stabilizing muscles, which makes it a more complete and challenging cup exercise. Try it in your next cupping session, but don't be surprised if the weights are much smaller than what you are used to. Let's finish with the least known exercise on my list, and that is wrist wrench curls on the flat bench. With almost every wrist wrench lift, your wrist and fingers get trained almost equally. This is a great exercise to isolate the wrist almost entirely from your fingers. You will still feel some pressure on your fingers, but it won't really affect you anymore. Make sure your bench is high enough, otherwise this exercise will not work. Roll the wrist wrench up until your wrist is straight when you put your arm down. You can even start with your wrist slightly bent back, to make sure you have enough range of motion. It is very easy to cheat yourself on this one, so make sure you go down until your wrist is straight on every single repetition. Another similar variation of this exercise is to make the weight come from the side. Many of you will prefer this one because it is much more comfortable. The exact same rules need to be applied. Start with your wrist straight and make sure you go down deep enough on every single repetition. I had really great strength improvements with these exercises and I highly recommend including them to your training. These were the 8 least known exercises in the arm wrestling world. If you have a different opinion, write it down in the comment section below and tell me what exercises you do that you haven't seen anyone else perform and how much they improved your strength. As I already mentioned, I will choose 5 of you to coach completely for free. All you have to do is to go down to the video description and fill out the application form. There is no catch, it is completely free, so don't miss this. With that being said, keep your eyes on this channel, great stuff is coming.